Okay, let's unpack this a bit. You're probably hearing the name Lip-Bu quite a lot now, Intel's new CEO.
Mm.
But this really isn't just another, boardroom shuffle. It feels bigger.
Uh-huh.
This story, it stretches from Malaysia to Singapore, MIT, Silicon Valley.
Yeah, it's quite a journey. You've got nuclear science in there, high-stakes venture capital, complex chip design. It spans continents and industries.
Exactly. And we've gathered, well, quite a stack of sources trying to really understand who this person is, what he's actually done, and crucially, the huge task he's facing now at Intel,
Yeah.
trying to steer that ship.
It's fascinating just looking at the background. Born in Malaysia, educated initially in Singapore,
Yeah.
then a master's from MIT in nuclear engineering, of all things.
And then an MBA later on. It's a really diverse foundation.
Totally. And that's before you even get into the career, energy sector work, founding and running a major VC firm, Walden International, and then, of course, that long, successful run as CEO of Cadence Design Systems.
Cadence, yeah, the electronic design automation giant. Super important for chip design.
Absolutely. Critical software.
So for you listening, our mission today in this deep dive is pretty clear.
Yeah.
We want to trace that whole history, Lip-Bu background, his achievements, and then try to get a handle on his vision for Intel now and, maybe the tough part, figure out how likely he is to actually pull it off.
Yeah. What are the odds?
By the end of this, hopefully, you'll have a really solid, nuanced picture of the person now running one of the world's most critical tech companies.
So let's start at the beginning then, those early years. He was born back in 1959 in Malaya, which is now Malaysia,
Right.
but grew up mostly in Singapore. His family background is interesting, too. His father was the chief editor of a big Malaysian Chinese newspaper,
Okay.
and his mother was a teacher at Singapore Nanyang University. That's actually where Lip-Bu did his undergrad degree in physics.
Ah, okay. And that later became part of the National University of Singapore, NUS, right?
That's the one. He apparently got through his physics degree in just 3 years.
Wow. Sounds like a high-achieving family all around. I read his brother was a Rhodes Scholar, became a heart specialist.
Yeah, and sisters with PhDs from Harvard, one in marine biology, another in linguistics, who supposedly speaks a ton of languages.
Incredible. So with all that, it's kind of funny he apparently jokes about being the dropout because he didn't finish his PhD at MIT.
Well, dropout is relative in that context, isn't it? Especially with a master's from MIT already under his belt.
True. Gives you a sense of the environment, though.
It really does. And maybe it also hints at that pragmatism we see later, switching from a nuclear engineering PhD path after the 3 Mile Island accident hit the industry.
Okay. That makes sense.
And then pivoting to get an MBA from the University of San Francisco. It shows adaptability. That could be pretty useful at Intel right now.
Definitely. And there's that other interesting detail, his passion for music. Served on the San Francisco Opera Board for years.
Yeah, over 7 years. Still a season ticket holder, apparently, even though he doesn't play an instrument. It just adds another dimension, doesn't it? Beyond just tech and business.
It does. So with this strong academic background, clear smarts, adaptability, how did he actually get into the finance and tech investment world? It wasn't straight from physics, was it?
No, not directly.
Yeah.
His first jobs were more technical. He worked at EDS Nuclear, and then he was CFO at a startup called Echo Energy Consulting.
Echo Energy, what do they do?
They focused on software for simulating the water hammer effect in nuclear plant piping, those dangerous pressure surges.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Still in the energy space then.
Yeah, initially. But then he had a stint, maybe a shorter one, but really important, at an investment banking firm, Chappell and Company.
And that's where he saw all the business plans.
That's the story. Evaluated something like 1,000 of them. Imagine the crash course that must have been.
Seriously. Like compressing years of business school and market analysis into one period.
You'd think so, seeing what works, what doesn't, across so many different ideas.
And it seems that immersion directly led him to think, okay, I can do this myself. Founding Walden International in 1987.
Exactly. And the name itself, Walden, from Thoreau, it signals that maybe he wasn't going to follow the standard VC playbook.
A bit of independent thinking, perhaps.
Seems like it. He started pretty small, a $3.3 million fund, I think, but grew it massively, eventually managing around $2.8 billion.
That's serious growth. And they had some big early wins, didn't they?
They really did. Companies like Mouse Systems, remember them?
Vaguely, yeah. Early computer mice.
And Creative Technology, the Sound Blaster guys, that was huge back then. Plus, D-Link, GVC, he got in early on some key players.
And Forbes called him the pioneer of Asian VC back in 2001. So he was looking east pretty early on.
Way ahead of the curve. Apparently, the story goes, part of the initial motivation was just an excuse to visit his mother back in Singapore more often.
Well, whatever works.
Mhm.
But it became much more than that.
Oh, absolutely. He set up funds across Asia, Taiwan, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, the Philippines, China. He was genuinely instrumental in establishing the venture capital concept in that region.
That shows real foresight, spotting that potential so early. And it must have given him incredible experience navigating different business cultures.
No doubt. Skills that would serve him well later. Which brings us neatly into the 2000s and him joining the board of Cadence Design Systems in 2004.
Right, Cadence. This seems like a really pivotal part of his career, often described as this major turnaround story. He joined the board, then became interim co-CEO in '08, and then the full president and CEO from '09 to '21.
And stayed on as executive chairman after that for a bit.
Yeah, and by all accounts, Cadence was in a pretty rough spot when he took the reins as CEO.
How bad was it?
Well, Morris Chang, the founder of TSMC, so he knows the industry, described Cadence as being in pretty big trouble. They'd lost key executives, things were shaky.
Okay, so a real challenge. How did Tan approach it? His focus seems to have been on unifying the company, this one-team culture idea. Big emphasis on customers, too.
I read he personally visited over 1,500 customers. That's a lot for a CEO.
It's incredible, isn't it? It shows a real commitment to understanding the market directly. And he combined that with smart, strategic acquisition.
And it worked. The turnaround was real.
Oh, yeah. The results speak for themselves. Big improvements in revenue. Stock price went way up during his tenure. He oversaw something like 15 acquisitions.
Any key ones stand out?
Definitely Denali and Tensilica. Those acquisitions pushed Cadence much deeper into crucial areas like semiconductor IP and also into AI and machine learning capabilities, which are obviously huge now.
So he was positioning them for the future there.
Absolutely. Driving innovation in parallelism, ML integration, cloud adoption for their tools. Morris Chang called his leadership transformational.
High praise from someone like Chang.
Very high. And apparently, even as interim CEO, he had this unusually hands-on style, responding personally to hundreds of employee emails daily, holding lots of meetings, trying to build a more open culture.
It sounds like he really dug in. And his background in electronic design automation, the software Cadence makes, must have given him a unique insight.
Hugely valuable. He understood the tools used to design the very chips Intel makes. He gets the whole ecosystem.
Okay, so after this long, successful run, turning Cadence around, why jump back to Intel as CEO now in March 2025, especially since he just stepped off their board a few months before?
Yeah, the timing is interesting, but the situation at Intel, well, it's another major challenge, arguably even bigger than Cadence was.
What are the main issues he's walking into?
It's a tough list. Intel's lost significant market share. They've had major setbacks in their manufacturing processes, falling behind rivals like TSMC. Earnings have declined. They're carrying a lot of debt.
Oof. And workforce reductions too, right?
Yes, that's been part of the picture. It's a company facing serious headwinds.
And strategically, they're trying to catch up in AI chips, where NVIDIA is just dominant.
Right. That's a huge priority.
And also trying to build out this foundry business, making chips for other companies, which was his predecessor, Pat Gelsinger's big push.
Exactly. A very ambitious, very expensive strategy to pursue simultaneously.
So what's Tan's stated plan? What's his vision for tackling all this?
Well, in a memo to employees shortly after he was appointed, he laid it out pretty clearly. Two main goals. Restore Intel as a world-class products company.
Okay.
And at the same time, establish Intel as a world-class foundry. He stressed how essential Intel is, to the whole tech ecosystem globally and in the U.S.
Double down on both fronts then. How did the market react to him taking over?
Pretty positively, actually. Intel shares saw a noticeable jump when the news broke. Suggests the market sees his track record as a good sign.
Well, yeah. You look at the Cadence turnaround, you hear the praise from people like Morris Chang, his deep industry experience. There are definitely reasons for some optimism.
Absolutely. His resume is strong. He knows semiconductors, he knows finance, he knows turnarounds.
But there's always a but, isn't there?
There is. The scale of the problems at Intel is immense, and the competition isn't standing still. TSMC is a manufacturing powerhouse. NVIDIA is flying high in AI.
It's not like Cadence's competitors were small, but this feels like a different league of challenge.
It arguably is. Catching up on manufacturing technology takes years and billions of dollars. Regaining market share is incredibly hard. It likely needs a big cultural shift within Intel too, not just strategy.
And then there's this other layer. the geopolitical stuff. There have been reports, I think, from Reuters about his venture capital firm, Walden, investing in a lot of Chinese tech companies over the years.
That's right, hundreds of them. And the tricky part is some of those phones allegedly have links to China's military, the PLA.
Ooh, okay. That could get complicated, especially for Intel being such a major supplier to the U.S. Department of Defense.
Right. Hugely complicated. In the current climate, with all the focus on tech competition and national security related to China, those past investments, they could create real political headwinds.
Yeah, scrutiny from Washington, potentially impacting government contracts, public image. It adds another whole dimension of difficulty.
It really does. So while he says he's sticking with the Foundry plan, its success isn't guaranteed anyway, and these external pressures just add more uncertainty. How does he navigate that history while leading a strategic American tech asset?
It's a massive balancing act.
Mhm.
So, okay, you weigh his proven ability, the Cadence success story, against the sheer scale of Intel's problems, the fierce competition, and these geopolitical complexities. What's the verdict? How likely is he to achieve that vision he laid out?
Honestly, it's really tough to call right now. You can't dismiss his track record. What
Yeah.
he did at Cadence proves he can lead a major tech company through tough times. That's
Yeah.
undeniable. But the semiconductor world moves incredibly fast. Intel's challenges are deep-seated. Transforming manufacturing and product leadership and building a foundry business, all while navigating geopolitics. It's just a monumental undertaking.
So potential is there based on the past,
Yeah.
but the hurdles are just enormous.
Exactly. Success isn't impossible, but it's far from guaranteed. It's going to require brilliant strategy, flawless execution, probably some luck, and very deft handling of all those external factors. Analysts like Stacy Rasgon at Bernstein thought he was a top choice, which says something.
Yeah.
But even the best choice faces a steep climb here.
It really puts his leadership skills to the ultimate test. Before we wrap up, there was one other aspect mentioned in the sources, his philanthropy. Seems quite important to him personally.
Yes, apparently very committed, he and his wife, through their foundation.
Yep.
The focus seems to be on education funding, professorships, scholarships, especially in math and science, and also supporting low-income families, tackling homelessness in the Bay Area, combating child labor issues internationally, even funding eye disease treatments in India. It's quite broad.
And there was that mention of his philosophy on giving, inspired by his mother. Something about giving until you...
Feel the pain. Yeah, giving a set portion of earnings based on that principle his mother taught him, it adds another layer to understanding the person beyond just the CEO profile.
Definitely. Provides a bit more context on his values. Okay, well, this has been a really fascinating deep dive. Lip-Butan's journey is just remarkable adaptability, strategic thinking, deep tech roots. He's got the turnaround credentials, no doubt. But Intel, wow, that's a challenge on a whole different scale, especially with the industry shifts and global politics swirling around it. Hopefully you, the listener, now have a much fuller picture of the person taking on this huge task.
Absolutely. And it leaves us with a pretty compelling question to chew on, doesn't it? Considering that history of, bold moves at Walden and Cadence and his deep grasp of tech and global markets, what kind of unexpected strategies might he actually try at Intel? And maybe more critically, how much will the current geopolitical climate, those China investment questions, the U.S.-China tech rivalry, ultimately dictate whether he succeeds or fails? The story is definitely not over yet.
Far from it. Understanding his past really gives you the lens to watch how this next chapter unfolds.